The world is in a constant state of change now more than ever. It's a world that requires resilience, flexibility, and innovation to overcome challenges and to pursue growth. That is why the University of the Philippines Los Baños is pursuing future-proofing initiatives to provide agile leadership and develop local and global communities amidst shocks and disruptions in an ever-changing world. Guided by compassion, an openness to working together, and a daring to seek out breakthroughs, UPLB constantly pushes for academic excellence, produces relevant research, establishes academic and industry partnerships, and cultivates creativity, critical thinking, and innovation. To keep up with a fast-changing world and to strive for inclusivity in development, UPLB seeks to level the playing field and expand avenues for acquiring new knowledge. It is reshaping the learning experience, enabling students and educators to continue with the learning process in vastly different learning conditions. It is expanding its academic programs and supporting initiatives to create a conducive learning environment. To address the growing complexities of modern problems, UPLB continues to break barriers across disciplines to produce cutting-edge innovations and solutions that serve the needs of various communities. It is taking on challenges in food security and sustainability and coordinating research efforts to direct the university's resources toward critical research areas, making sure that the university-generated knowledge can reach its intended stakeholders and be applied to real-life contexts. UPLB is dedicated to its commitment to contribute to public good and social welfare as it continues to work with the local government and the community to address their most pressing needs. Amidst its engagements, UPLB remains as one of the top regional and global universities and continues to be recognized in the country and across the world. As the national university, UPLB aims to be a steadfast partner in development as a producer of new approaches that minimize the cost and impacts of future shocks, and by honing leaders committed to knowledge creation, innovation, and cutting-edge research and public service. This is UPLB's roadmap to be an impactful institution in a constantly changing landscape. Responsive, innovative, future-proof. Amid the disruption and uncertainty of recent years, UPLB worked assiduously on the urgent task of future-proofing its systems and processes to accomplish its mandates in instruction, research, and public service. It took an unrelenting focus on attaining agility in coping with future disruptions. Aided by technology but propelled in large measure by a workforce imbued by the values of compassion, cooperation, and collaboration, the university navigated through the challenges that greatly affected higher education. Today, UPLB reports its accomplishments in flagship and in other areas of its work to future-proof the university. Future-proofing learning and instruction. In instruction, UPLB provided resources and trained faculty members on using learning management systems and educational and research applications and related topics that enabled them to adjust to change and disruption. It continued to modernize its learning technology infrastructure to strengthen home-based internationalization and networking with other state universities and colleges. UPLB acquired digital resources and trained librarians in various skills that help promote student agility in the use of both physical and digital resources. Its 180-strong general education faculty reflected on the teaching of general education, the relevance of the GE philosophy, and how to reinvigorate GE teaching and learning at the 2021 UP System GE Conference. UPLB has instituted new degree programs relevant to the needs of the country and in areas where it has built expertise. This will also increase the access of students to a quality UP education. UPLB is now opening an international mobility track for its undergraduate and graduate degree programs to facilitate student mobility. The first in the UP system to implement this, UPLB will be able to encourage students to enroll in universities abroad to gain more exposure to different cultures and worldviews and broaden their perspectives in doing so. The International Mobility Track promotes curricular dynamism and flexibility essential to incorporating an international, intercultural, and global dimension to student learning in higher education.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to SESAM Exchanges, an environmental challenges and solutions seminar series. And this is brought to you by the School of Environmental Science and Management, University of the Philippines, Los Baños. I am Tad Lawas, and today we will have our topic, Transboundary and Spatially Targeted Payment for Ecosystem Services Scheme. And can you please scan this QR code first for your attendance? Thank you. Okay. I'll give you an opportunity to take a photo of this one. Yes, okay. Before we move forward, we will have our prayer and national anthem.
Please pause for a while as we invoke the presence of the Almighty Father. Let us pray. O God, Creator of all things, Master of life, Fountain of eternal joy, we praise your magnificent name and express our gratitude for the gift of life that you have bestowed upon us. Thank you, Lord, for this beautiful world you've made for us. Thank you to our leaders who show us the path of goodness. Thank you to our colleagues who teach us about friendship and make our workplace an enjoyable place to be. As we commence our endeavor, grant us wisdom and insight, openness and enthusiasm, humility and tolerance. May everyone be inspired in everything we do, and may your saving grace remain with us, so that all our prayers and efforts begin and end with you. Teach us endurance, Lord, so that at the end of the day, we can say, we lived according to your will. All this we ask and pray In your mighty name. Amen.
Okay, for our house rules on this webinar, this is being recorded for documentation purposes. You may use the chat box for greetings and comments. Questions will be entertained during the open forum. Please put your questions in the chat box via Zoom or comment section of our FB page with the following format: name/affiliation/question. E-certificate will be provided after completing the online evaluation form, which will be shared towards the end of the program. And now for the welcome remarks, we will have the Dean and Professor of UPLB CESAM, Dr. Rico C. Encog. Good morning, Dean Rico.
Good morning, Doc Thad, and good morning to each and every one of you. It is an honor to welcome you to the Sesame Exchanges number 18. And our topic is very crucial, especially in light of a number of environmental challenges, perennial in terms of nature and in terms of focus. And therefore, we're here to find mechanisms how to operationalize our efforts. First and foremost, we're very much honored to have our speaker from Nanjing Agricultural University. Thank you very much, Dr. Yutao, for your time and in sharing your perspective on the matter. We understand that you have been immersing yourselves on these kinds of projects, and particularly in China, and therefore it is of interest for us to learn from your work. At the School of Environmental Science and Management, we champion environmental science as a discipline, and one of our core courses in PhD and MS Environmental Science is in ENS 242, Economic Valuation of Environmental Impacts and Natural Resources. And at the center of this course is really the question about value. And therefore, when you try to understand environmental problems, we have to also understand where is the concept of value in all of these challenges, because the solution to this could also hinge on our appreciation on the value and how we can then wield mechanisms in relation to our appreciation of value. Now, our purpose is to then capture value, and therefore we design mechanisms related to establishing markets on a number of these ecosystem services, one of which is via payments for ecosystem services. And if I may share, payments for ecosystem services have become very popular tool to address environmental degradation and to promote sustainable management of ecosystem services. For the past decades, several programs to reward provision of ES have been implemented worldwide, in fact. And however, there still exists an academic debate on what PS actually refers to. A PS is commonly defined as a transaction between ecosystem service users and providers. But this definition gives room for many interpretations. And again, if I may share and to provide more context, a narrow definition, which we call free market PES, however, restricts PES to transactions between private agents where both suppliers and buyers are free to trade or not. A broader definition, which we will call regulated demand PES, includes schemes where buyers are forced to purchase a certain amount of ecosystem services. These mandatory buyers can either be private firms subject to, let's say, cap and trade system, or the state itself in the case of results-based subsidies. Ranging from a narrow to a broad definition, PS schemes have been implemented in various geographical and socioeconomic contexts across the world. And that is the reason why we're very interested on this implementation, and particularly in our discussion today, the case of some case studies in China. As the PS schemes may have different objectives, they may also achieve different levels of environmental effectiveness, which depends on design characteristics as well as on the context of implementation. One last point. The effectiveness of our PS would typically rest on two synergistic pillars, if I may share. First is enrollment, and second is additionality. To achieve significant environmental impacts, a PS must indeed enroll a reasonably large number of potential ecosystem service providers. That's one. And these are often farmers or community members or community organizations. However, the second pillar is additionality, and additionality is also of paramount. If a faulty design results in payments for what most ES providers would have done anyways, a PES will have little effectiveness, even if it manages to enroll a large number of potential ES providers. In attendance today, our partners from different state universities and colleges or higher education institutions, and more so, our students, faculty, and researchers from UPLB, and especially from SESAM. And therefore, the topic of interest, which we will be talking about transboundary, will be crucial in further understanding these two pillars, and to also provide a picture how is this happening in the socio-economic context that China is undergoing or having. It is my hope that this will be a very fruitful event for all of us. And then I am hoping that our students and researchers and scientists will then ask questions to our distinguished speakers. Our hope is that as we then put more interests into establishing more markets for all those resources and natural resources and environmental resources we want to manage, we can then design effective mechanisms to wield the power of the markets and to make sure that this translates into preferred environmental outcomes. While this is not the only mechanisms by which we then advance environmental management and governance, but the rest of as I described, how crucial this is. So again, thank you very much, and we wish you all the best. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you very much, Dean Rico. And now next, may I request everybody to turn on our cameras for our group photo. Okay. Give us your big smile, and we'll ask Ms. Jessa to assist us for this group photo. Go ahead, Jess.
All right, Doc Tad. So to our participants, you may use our official Zoom background. So I have 5 pages on my screen. So please hold your smile for a while. Okay, for the first page. 1, 2, 3, and smile. Okay, another one. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, next. 1, 2, 3, smile. All right, last two. 1, 2, 3, smile. And for the last page, 1, 2, 3, and smile. All right, we're good. Thank you, Dr. Ad.
Thank you, Jessa. Thank you for those 200 participants who gave us their big smiles this morning. And also would like to recognize our attendees from our Facebook page. Okay, now for the topic transboundary and spatially targeted payment for ecosystem services scheme, we will have the professor of College of Land Management at Nanjing Agricultural University, Dr. Yu Tao, and he finished his PhD in ecology at the Chinese Academy of Sciences Research Center for Environmental Sciences in China. And he was also a visiting student at Georgia Institute of Technology, Brooke Byers Institute for Sustainable Systems, and he finished his BS Ecology at Sun Yat-sen University School of Life Science, China. His research interests include landscape ecology, ecosystem service, sustainable land use, and resource nexus. He is also a awardee of the full sponsored Asia Hub at Michigan State University for the workshop on building Earth observation capacities to address the water, energy, and food nexus in Asia. That was in 2024. And he also the youth editorial board member of the Chinese Journal for Applied Ecology, and also a committee member of the International Association of Landscape Ecology in China. So without much further ado, may I call in and let's welcome Dr. Yu Tao. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Lawrence. So can everyone see my presentation?
Yes, we can see your screen right now. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor and Dean Rico, and thank you, Professor Lawrence, for the introduction. My name is Yu Tao. I am an associate professor from Nanjing Agricultural University. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Professor and Dean Rico and for everyone to offer me this great opportunity to share one of my recent case study on payment for ecosystem services with all of you. And before start introducing my case study on this payment for ecosystem services, I would like to take a few more minutes to very briefly introduce my university and my college, and also about myself. I am from Nanjing Agricultural University in China, and Nanjing Agricultural University is, as shown on this map, is located in the eastern part of China. I think the distance between our two universities is not too far away. It is about 6-hour flight. And as to the name of our university, Nanjing is a city in the eastern part of China. It is located right here. And because we are an agricultural university, so we do research and also teaching tasks, mainly related to agricultural sciences. And we ranked the number 7 for the best global universities for agricultural sciences, according to the US News. And there are 10 disciplines of our university ranked in ESI system, for example, plant and animal science, agricultural sciences, and we also have environment and ecology and also social sciences in general, ranked the world top 1%. Our university has 2 major campuses. The old campus is located in a downtown area of the Nanjing city, near a scenic area, and the new campus is located in the northern part of the city, but in a new district by the Yangtze River, a very large river in China. Overall, there are 5 faculties in our university. As to my College of Land Management, also known as the College of Public Administration, is in the Faculty of Social Science. And as to the college, I'm based in the College of Land Management. It is the first college of land management in China, established in 1992. The college was renamed as the College of Public Administration in 2003, after including several more majors, including not only land resource management, but also administration management, human geography, and human resources management, labor and social security. So it was renamed. And this is our college building located on the old campus, but our college occupies only the 7th and 8th floor of this building. And overall, we were rated at the first-tier discipline according to the Ministry of Education of China, and we ranked the top 7% in best Chinese subjects. So these are a very brief introduction about my university and my college. And about me, myself, I was graduated from the Chinese Academy of Sciences, obtaining a PhD degree in ecology in 2016. And after graduation, I joined Nanjing Agricultural University as a postdoc for 4 years. And now I work as associate professor. I also have 2 visiting experiences, including as a visiting PhD student, I was at Georgia Institute of Technology for 8 months, and then between 2022 and 2023, I visited the University of Florida as a visiting scientist. My research interests include landscape ecology, ecosystem services, and also sustainable land use. And to be more specific, I am particularly interested in studies conducted on the watershed scale. My case study regions include several watersheds or basins located in the eastern and southern part of China. My research focuses include in specific such as hydrological ecosystem service flows, and also the influence of landscape pattern on and ecological processes on ecosystem services, and how these impacts further cascade to have an effect on the sustainability of the region. I'm also interested in regional or watershed scale water food land nexus, and also payment for ecosystem services, as I will share one of my recent work on this, and also regional landscape sustainability. I would also like to mention 3 of my very important collaboration partners. The first one is Professor Oh. He is a full professor in Nanjing Agricultural University. He was my postdoc supervisor for 4 years, and we started working together very closely since 2016. And also Steve Pook from Michigan State University. He is a distinguished professor and senior scientist working on web nexus, especially in Asian regions, that is water, energy, food nexus in Asian regions. And we started our collaboration since 2018, when we both participated in international collaboration projects funded by Nanjing Agricultural University. And the third partner is Associate Professor Jiang Xiao Qiu. He is he works in University of Florida, and he is a PI of Landscape Ecology and Sustainability Science Lab. He is my host supervisor when I was a visiting scientist at the University of Florida. His research interests also include landscape ecology, ecosystem services, and sustainability science. I think the state of Florida shares a similar climate condition with Philippines. So if any one of you are interested in related topics and or interested in research in tropical regions, maybe it will be good to for both of you to have some collaboration opportunities. So these are my brief introduction about myself. And next, I would like to share very briefly one of my recent case study on payment for ecosystem services. This work was conducted not only by me, but in collaboration with one of my graduate students, Xu Fei Chen, and also the 3 distinguished professors, as I just mentioned. And the overall goal of this research is try to develop a transboundary and also specially targeted payment for ecosystem service scheme in my case study region. I would like to introduce my research in the following the typical structure of a research article. including introduction, methods, results, discussion, and conclusions. First, introduction. This research is about payment for ecosystem services, especially implemented on the watershed scale. As you may all know, payment for ecosystem services has been a very crucial and important economic incentive to address the inequity issues between both the providers and users of ecosystem services. Here, the ecosystem services is defined as the benefits people obtain from nature. In reality, or in the real world, in many cases, users of ecosystem services use ecosystem services for free. So this could lead to inequity issues, as providers of ecosystem services may sacrifice their own benefits to provide or sustain or enhance different categories of ecosystem services, but they are used for free. So to address this issue, PES, or payment for ecosystem services, has been a very important environmental policies implemented across several regions of the world, especially in the watersheds or on a watershed scale, because on a watershed scale, the role of ecosystem service providers and users are relatively clearly defined. As for example, upstream residents may be the providers of ecosystem services, and the downstream residents may be the beneficiaries who benefited from water-related ecosystem services on a watershed scale. But the existing watershed level or watershed scale payment for ecosystem service scheme may still encounter several significant challenges. We conclude that there may be 4 major challenges. The first challenge is about the justification for implementing a payment for ecosystem service scheme. That is the conditionality. Conditionality should be very clearly defined before implementing the payment for ecosystem service scheme, but very often it is underutilized or not very clearly defined. This could lead to skepticism among stakeholders, especially among the users or the payers of ecosystem services, because they may question why they should pay. So this should be clearly defined, the conditionality. And the second issue is related to the providers of ecosystem services. Very often, in many cases, the ecosystem service providers are not effectively specially targeted. This could lead to a very low efficiency in the allocation of the often limited funds in a payment for ecosystem service scheme. And the third issue is very common, that is the disagreements on payment amounts between the two parties, the users and the providers of ecosystem services. Very often, the providers of ecosystem services may ask for a lot of compensation, but the users or the payers of ecosystem services may not want to pay that much. So there often are disagreements over the payment amounts. And the fourth one is related to the scale of a specific payment for ecosystem service scheme for a watershed area. Although it is called the payment for watershed services or payment for ecosystem services on a watershed scale, and very often the scheme is implemented within the boundary of a watershed. But in fact, the beneficiaries of watershed conservation or watershed restoration may not only reside within the boundary of a watershed, but may also located outside the boundary of a watershed. So this could lead to inequity issues if only the residents within the watershed boundary make the payment, but those reside outside the boundary of a watershed do not make any payment. So this is another issue. And specifically, as to the disagreements on the payment amounts or on how to determine an appropriate or rational payment amounts, actually many studies have developed various methodologies to try to estimate how much money should be paid in a specific payment for ecosystem service scheme. This is the most concerning question in a payment for ecosystem service scheme. And so far, we think that there may be 3 major types of methodologies to estimate an appropriate payment amount in a PS scheme. The first one is the willingness-based approaches. That is to conduct questionnaire survey to ask both providers and users of ecosystem services their willingness to accept or to pay. But we think this approach may not address the issue of disagreements because the users of ecosystem services may still express no willingness to pay, while the providers of ecosystem services may express a very high willingness to accept. And the second approach to estimate the amount of payment is the cost-based approaches. This kind of approach estimate the amount of payment based on the costs in a PS scheme, including direct costs and indirect costs, like the opportunity costs. And the third approach is the benefit-based approach. This approach often employ the concept and the tools of ecosystem services to estimate the benefit embodied in the payment for ecosystem service scheme. For example, by calculating ecosystem service supply and demand budget, and also by calculating ecosystem service dynamics over time, researchers have estimated payment amounts based on these estimation results. And more recently, the concept of ecosystem service flows have been proposed or integrated into the assessment of payment amount in a PS scheme. And by definition, ecosystem service flows can be defined as the special delivery process of ecosystem services from service providing areas to the service benefiting areas. That is the direction of ecosystem service flow. And it can also be defined as the amount of ecosystem services actually received or used by the beneficiaries, that is the quantity of flow. We think this concept, both the direction and quantity of ecosystem service flow, can be very useful in addressing several key research questions in PS practices, including who should receive the payment, how much should be paid, and for what, and also who should make the payment. As illustrated here, the ecosystem service providers may provide a certain amount of ecosystem service flow to the users of ecosystem services. And so to be fairly paid, the users should pay an equivalent money flow to the providers. But if overpaid, there could be issues like financial burden to the users because they pay too much and the ecosystem services are too expensive to use, leading to underuse of ecosystem services. But if underpaid or unpaid, then it could have a free rider effect. That is, users use ecosystem services too cheap or for free. This could further lead to overuse of ecosystem services, and also ecosystem service degradation and poor livelihood to the ecosystem service providers. So we think the concept of ecosystem service flow can help clarify these key aspects of ecosystem service of payment for ecosystem service schemes, including who should pay, like ecosystem service users should pay, and how much this should be equivalent to the ecosystem service flow, and to whom, to the providers, for what, for the flow of ecosystem services, or to the delivery of ecosystem services. And in fact, recently in several case studies, ecosystem service flows, especially hydrologic or water-related ecosystem service flows, have been quantified and integrated into PS scheme for estimating the amount of payment in these schemes. For example, this case study showed that by calculating or by estimating the amount of water provision service flow, they can help estimate how much money should be paid among different regions in a watershed on a watershed scale. But among these studies, we think that there might be two issues remain unaddressed or not mentioned yet. The first one is water quality-based ecosystem service flows, because in many cases, these studies only calculate water quantity-based ecosystem service flows because it is more easier to quantify, such as water provision service flow is more easier to quantify than water quality. But water quality is also important for a watershed scale PS scheme, because not only water quantity, but also water quality is very important for the beneficiaries on a watershed scale. And another one is that many of these ecosystem service flow analysis was confined within the boundary of the watershed, but actually water-related ecosystem service flow could be transboundary, or could flow across the borders of the watershed boundary. So transboundary ecosystem service flow should also be taken into account in estimating the appropriate payment amount in a PS scheme. And In relation to this transboundary issue, we think of another concept called the meta-couple system, or the meta-coupling, which was proposed and defined by Professor Jack Liu from Michigan State University. According to his definition, a meta-couple system describes interconnected coupled systems that interact internally, nearby, and at a distance. That is, a meta-coupling includes both intracoupling, paracoupling, and telecoupling. We think this concept and analytical framework is suitable to reveal transboundary interactions, and for example, through transboundary ecosystem service flows, and therefore this concept has the potential to help scale up payment for ecosystem service schemes to incorporate not only the watershed, not only in the local watershed, but also meta-couple regions and stakeholders across scales. So after this literature review, we asked two research questions in our case study. The first question is related to the efficiency of a PES scheme. That is, how can critical providers of the most concerned ecosystem services be specially targeted so as to maximize the cost effectiveness of a watershed PES scheme. And the second one is related to the transboundary issue of a PES scheme. That is, how can transboundary ecosystem service flows be quantified to support a fair and justifiable payment between the providers and users of ecosystem services across meta-couple regions. And to address these two questions, our case study region is the Xinnan River watershed. It is a interprovincial watershed located in the eastern part of China. The area of this watershed is over 10,000 square kilometers, mostly hilly and forested regions. This is interprovincial because the upstream portion of this watershed is located in Anhui province, or province A. And the lower portion of this watershed is located in another province, in Zhejiang province, or province Z. So, and this is a provincial border. So this is a very typical interprovincial watershed, and it is also a very important urban headwater region because it provides clean drinking water not only to the local residents but also to a metropolis called Hangzhou metropolis, located more than 100 kilometers away right here. And there are like 8 million people living in this metropolis. So this is a very important urban headwater region. And overall, because it is a mostly forested area, the water quality is generally good. But as you can see, there are several areas of croplands here. So especially total light stream pollution from agricultural production remain a significant threat to the maintenance of water quality in this watershed. And more importantly, more than 70% of the total light stream export originates from the upstream region of this watershed in A province. So this could lead to management issues because the pollution originates from the province A, but water quality is a top concern in province Z. So they have conflicts in terms of development versus conservation of water quality. And to address this issue, actually this watershed has implemented our country's first pilot PES scheme for an interprovincial watershed since 2011. And over the past decade, between 2011 and 2020, actually over $700 million have been allocated to this region to address this issue of water quality conservation. And most of the money was allocated to the upstream portion of this watershed, to A province. The overall this existing interprovincial PES scheme is effective in conserving water quality because the water quality is overall good in this region over the past decade, but still encounters several challenges, including unclear payment allocation strategies. Although the upstream portion of the watershed receives a lot of money, but they don't have a very clear special allocation strategy to use this money more efficiently, and this could lead to this has led to no returns on investment. Here I mean year by year the local governments have to spend more and more money in order to maintain desired water quality. And also, as there are disagreements over payment amounts between the two provincial governments, because province A in the upstream, they declare that they have spent much more money than they received as compensation, so they need to increase the compensation. But on the other hand, province Z in the downstream region, they declare that they have paid too much to the other province. So disagreements. And another issue is the trans-regional issue. For the existing PS scheme, it is only confined within this watershed region, addressing issues among between upstream and downstream regions. But actually, the beneficiaries of water quality conservation in this watershed benefits not only local residents but also, as I just mentioned, metropolis nearby, and which means more of residents in this metropolis. And a new situation. This is a new situation because the watershed started providing clean drinking water to this metropolis only after 2020. So this is a new situation comparing to the existing scheme that has started since 2011. And another situation, or another big party of beneficiaries that hasn't been included in the existing PS scheme is a corporation. There's a large bottled water corporation named Nongfu Spring Corporation. This corporation produces and sells bottled water products by using water from this lake, from this watershed, for a long time. But this corporation was never hasn't been included in the existing PS scheme. So this might be another issue. As shown here, about the beneficiaries located outside the watershed boundary. Here is a local newspaper saying that the residents in Hangzhou metropolis will be able to drink water from Lake Chendao. Here is the Lake Chendao in this watershed, from Lake Chendao in 2020. And this is the website of the Nongfu Spring Corporation. Actually, it is the best seller of bottled water products in China. If any one of you have ever been to China or attend a conference in China, most probably they will serve you a bottled water made from this corporation. And this corporation has a very famous advertisement slogan that they do not produce water; they are merely transporters of nature, meaning that they directly use water from this watershed to produce bottled water products. So these two water users were not included in the existing PS scheme, and these are some of the issues related to the existing PS scheme. So according to these facts, we in this case study proposed a meta-coupled analytical framework trying to refine and improve the existing payment for ecosystem service scheme in this region. This is the framework the conceptual framework we proposed, including meta-coupled systems that were interconnected via water-related ecosystem service flows. Here is the focal system, the watershed area, and also adjacent system, the Hangzhou metropolis, and a remote system, the bottled water corporation and its nationwide consumers. And in our case study, our analysis were divided into two different phases. The first phase, we call it the brown phase, addressing issues within this focal system, the watershed. And this brown phase mainly addresses or analyzes total light stream transport and retention from land to the lake, and also how can we regulate total light stream transport and retention through improved net management measures and scenarios. And the second phase, the blue phase, we try to estimate the amount of trans-regional water ecosystem service flows, that is water provision service flows, both to the local area and also to the metropolis and to the corporation and its nationwide consumers. So overall, we aim to develop a specially targeted and also transboundary PS scheme for this meta-coupled system, collecting a large urban headwater region and also a major metropolis and a very large bottled water corporation with its nationwide consumers. And the overall goal is to enhance the scheme to secure clean water provision across boundaries in a more cost-effective, justifiable, and equitable manner. So based on this conceptual framework, we further developed a 4-step analysis. The first step of analysis is water quality modeling. In this first step, we used the INVEST model, which was developed by the Natural Capital Project and Stanford University. We use this model to estimate or to quantify total nitrogen export and concentrations in the watershed as of 2021 at the base year. The aim of this analysis is to identify, as of 2021, the critical source areas of total nitrogen pollution in this watershed. And in the second step, by focusing or by targeting at the critical source areas of total nitrogen pollution identified in the first step, we further developed different sets of scenarios for improving that management to further improve water quality in these polluted regions. And here we examine 3 different land measures of 4 different spatial targeting strategies in developing different scenarios of land management in this watershed. Here we consider 3 land management measures, including a grain for green, which is a conversion of cropland to forest land. These represent a high intensity change in land use. Theoretically, this measure would reduce total nitrogen export by 80%. On croplands, and also reduce crop production by 100% because it is converted to forest land. And the second net measure is land retirement, that is switch from double cropping to single cropping in a year, representing a medium intensity change in land use, and this could potentially or theoretically reduce total nitrogen export by 50% and also a reduced crop production by 50%. The third one is nitrogen fertilizer reduction. That is to reduce nitrogen fertilizer application by 20%. This represents a low intensity change in land use and could theoretically reduce total nitrogen export on the croplands by 20%, with a less than 5% loss in crop year. Here, this parameter 5% was derived from a relevant literature, in which they found that by reducing nitrogen fertilizer reduction by 20%, the potential impacts on crop year could be less than 5% if this area is over-fertilized. So these are the 3 net management measures we considered, and we also consider how where to implement these different net management measures. So we consider 4 different strategies, including a pollution-based selection strategy, that is to select croplands based on their total nitrogen export intensity. And the second special targeting strategy is distance-based, that is to select croplands located closer to water bodies. And the third one is slope-based selection, selecting sloping croplands for implementing each of these different net management measures. And the fourth one is for comparison purposes. It's the random selection. Croplands are randomly selected for implementing these different net management measures. So by combining 3 different net management measures and to implement these measures using following 4 different spatial targeting strategies over varying areas of the watershed, we developed hundreds of net management scenarios in the second step. And in the third step, we aim to identify the optimal land management scenario based on cost-benefit analysis. Here, the costs was measured as the losses in crop year, and the benefit was evaluated as the reduction of total nitrogen export. And then, in this step, we aim to find the most cost-efficient scenario among all of the hundreds of net management scenarios developed in the second step. And in the final step, after identifying the optimal net management scenario, we further evaluated the ecosystem service flows under these optimal net management scenarios, including water quality flows and water quantity flows. For water quality flows, it was evaluated at the avoided costs of TN reduction under each of the optimal scenario. And for water quantity flow, it was estimated using statistical data in the base year of 2021 to calculate and estimate trans-regional water provision benefits. And based on these calculates, we further developed a refined payments scheme for this metacarpal region. So this is the overall methodologies employed in this study. And then here is the results here are the results in 4 major parts. The first one is about water quality modeling or evaluation in the base year of 2021, and shown in this figure. We identified 3 major polluted sub-watershed in this large watershed area, including a heavily polluted sub-watershed, a very large one in the upstream region of this watershed, and also a moderately polluted sub-watershed located in the downstream region of the watershed, and also a mildly polluted sub-watershed located across the provincial borders. Here we use the threshold value of total nitrogen concentration 1 gram per cubic meter according to the Chinese surface water quality standards. And according to our further estimation, these 3 polluted sub-watershed comprise only 60% of the total land area, but contributed over 75% of total nitrogen export in the watershed. And more specifically, within the 3 polluted sub-watershed, the croplands only covered 13% of these 3 polluted sub-watershed area, but contributed over 60% of the TN export. So the croplands within the 3 polluted sub-watersheds were the critical source regions of this watershed. And then in the second step, we targeted on the 3 polluted sub-watershed to develop different sets of land management scenarios for to examine their cost effectiveness in improving water quality. Here, as shown in these figures, each row represents each specific polluted sub-watershed targeted, and each column represents different sets of land management scenarios by adopting each of the 3 land management measures. For example, if we take a closer look at figure A, this figure shows different sets of land management scenarios and their effects on both percent loss in crop production as shown along the x-axis, and also total nitrogen concentrations as shown by this y-axis. So for each specific polluted sub-watershed, we examine different sets of land management scenarios implemented by adopting a specific land management measure. For example, grain for green, implemented over a certain area, selected following a specific special targeting strategy. For example, a pollution-based, slope-based, distance-based, or random selection. And we also examine and determine the most cost-efficient or the most appropriate scenario among all of these scenarios based on 2 criteria. The first criteria is the highest cost efficiency, that is the sharpest decline along these curves. And the second criteria is that the optimal scenario must be able to reduce total nitrogen concentrations to below 1, as shown by this dashed line here, according to the Chinese surface water quality standard. So we finally mark the optimal scenario with a red mark here, and as shown here. But for each specific polluted sub-watershed, we could design or we could develop a land management scenario by adopting a grain for green or net retirement or nitrogen fertilizer reduction. And the optimal of all scenarios was marked with a light blue rectangle here. So the optimal one for each polluted sub-watershed was should be this one, the red mark in this light blue rectangle. And here it means that for the heavily polluted sub-watershed, by adopting grain for green or by converting croplands to forest land, over 10% of the cropland area in this sub-watershed, which were selected based on pollution-based selection, could be most cost efficient and most appropriate for this specific sub-watershed. This could potentially lead to a 10% loss in crop production and being able to reduce total nitrogen concentration to this level. And this is similar for moderately polluted sub-watershed. The best scenario is this one, by converting 16% of its cropland to forest land selected based on their pollution intensity. This could potentially lead to a 16% loss in crop production and reduce TN concentration to this level. But for the mildly polluted sub-watershed, the optimal scenario is this one, as marked here. That is by retiring 2% of its cropland based on their pollution intensity. And this scenario could potentially lead to a 1% loss in crop yield and reducing TN concentration to this level. So Overall, we found that the strength to reduce total nitrogen is the highest for grain, followed by land retirement and nitrogen fertilizer reduction. And among the 4 special targeting strategies, we found that overall pollution-based special targeting strategy is most cost-efficient, comparing to the other 3, followed by distance-based. And surprisingly, we found that slope-based selection strategy exhibited a lower cost effectiveness performance even compared to random selection. So and overall, we conclude that for this area, grain for green, that is converting cropland to forest land, are recommended for significant improvements in water quality or significant reduction in TN concentration in this situation. But land retirement and managed fertilizer application may offer higher cost efficiency performance for smaller improvements in water quality. So in the second step, by conducting cost-benefit analysis of different scenarios of land measures, we identified for each specific polluted subwatershed the optimal scenario for improving water quality. And based on these calculations and estimations, in the third step, we further calculated water-related ecosystem service flows across Metacarpal regions, including water quality-based flows. Here, water quality-based flows was quantified as total nitrogen reduction under each of the optimal scenario for each of the 3 polluted subwatersheds. And according to our calculation, total nitrogen reduction under the 3 optimal scenarios could total more than 2,000 tons, yielding $44.5 million of avoided costs. And to be specific, over 90% of potential TN reduction and cost savings could originate from the heavily polluted subwatershed alone. And on the other hand, for the water quantity-based ecosystem service flows, that is trans-regional water provision service flow, we calculated this flow based as of 2021 based on statistical data from the corporation and from the local governments. And according to our calculation, trans-regional water provision totaled over 1,000 million tons, equating to more than $2,000 million. And in these calculations, we found that over 87% of the clean water was physically withdrawn and used by the Hangzhou metropolis. So Hangzhou metropolis was the largest water user or water consumer in this Metacarpal system. But in terms of economic benefits, more than 80% of the economic benefits was gained by the corporation as sales revenue. This was because for the metropolis and for the local watershed, they withdraw water for municipal water use purposes. So the economic benefits was estimated by multiplying the amount of water withdrawals by municipal water price, which was relatively low. But for Nongfu Spring Corporation, it withdraw water for to produce and sell bottled water products, and the sales revenue is very high. So more than 80% of the economic benefits was gained by this corporation, although this corporation only withdraw a very small proportion of the water quantity. So based on these calculations, we in the last step propose a refined transboundary payment for ecosystem service scheme for this watershed area and also its Metacarpal regions. Overall, we estimated that the total compensation should be $44.5 million according to the avoided costs of TN reduction under the optimal land management scenarios. And these $44.5 million could be allocated to 3 major regions or major providers of ecosystem services located in the heavily polluted, the mildly polluted, and the moderately polluted subwatershed. And more specifically or more specially targeted, these payments were allocated to the farmers who adopt improved land management measures, including either a grain for green or land retirement. And the amount of money they received was allocated based on their relative contribution to total nitrogen reduction. So according to our calculation, the farmers who adopt grain for green in a heavily polluted subwatershed could receive 41.3 million and 1.7 million and 1.5 million for the other 2 regions. And on average, we calculated that on a per hectare basis, each farmer who adopt these improved net management measures could receive 4,000 to over 10,000 US dollars of payment per hectare. This was a very high number for the farmer on a per hectare basis. And on the other hand, to pay the 44.5 million US dollars of payments, the three major parties of water users should split the bill according to their economic benefits gained from water consumption. And we calculated that the local watershed only need to pay 0.6 million. The metropolis should pay 7.9 million, and the corporation and its nationwide consumers should pay 36 million US dollars. That is over 80% of the payments. On average, for both the local watershed and the metropolis, how should they pay this amount of money? They could increase their municipal water price by only 1.8%. And similarly, for the corporation or the consumers of the corporation, they could increase the sale price or the purchase price of bottled water products by also 1.8%. So this is the scheme of our proposed payment for ecosystem services in this region. And here on the discussion portions, we found that in this case study, we identified several keystone or key actors in such a meta-coupled payment for ecosystem service scheme. For example, we found that the farmers in the upstream region are critical to potentially contribute over 90% of total nitrogen reduction, very critical for improving water quality in this region. And also Hangzhou metropolis, it actually consumes over 87% of the clean water, plays a very important role in this PS scheme. And also the corporation and its consumers bear 81% of the associated costs. They are the major payers in this scheme. And also we evaluated the cost effectiveness of this PS scheme. We found that overall, water quality could be increased by 24%. That is, a total nitrogen export could be reduced by 24%, with only 8% of crop loss. And for each farmer who will be involved in this PS scheme, they could receive payments equating to 3 times their opportunity cost. That is, their costs, their income lost. That is their income from growing crops or from leasing their croplands. So this is also cost efficient for each individual farmer. And as to the implications, we think that it's very important to especially target critical ecosystem service providers for improving the cost effectiveness of a PS scheme. And as to the payment amount, it might be good to estimate the payment amount based on ecosystem service flows for a better justification of the amount of the estimation of the amount. And as to the beneficiaries, they may not only reside within the boundary of the watershed, but also can be trans-regional, and they should be included for equity issues. And finally, some limitations of this case study. I think our proposed PS scheme is only ecosystem service restoration based. That is, we only compensate farmers who take measures to improve their net management for improving water quality in the region. But contributors to ecosystem service conservation, for example, forest landholders, were not included in the current payment for ecosystem service scheme, and which should be included in the future. And as to the beneficiaries, we only include water users as direct beneficiaries of improved water quality and water quantity provision in this meta-coupled regions. But actually, for the watershed and for the lake, it is not only a reservoir, but also a very important caviar production base, and also a very famous scenic area in China, attracting millions of tourists from around the country and overseas. So in the future, not only water users, but also fish farmers, caviar consumers, and also tourists from around the world should be included as potential beneficiaries and payers of this PS scheme. So last, some conclusions. In this study, we propose a specially targeting the transboundary PS scheme by adopting the concept of ecosystem service flows and also meta-coupling systems concept. And our research identified some seemingly unrelated stakeholders, including in upstream farmers and urban residents, and also bottled water corporation. They are all very important actors in in such a successful and sustainable PS scheme if implemented in the future. And also, I think our approach can be applied to several other regions that aim to secure clean water, not only provided to the local region, but also across borders in a more equitable, justifiable, and cost-effective manner. And thank you. That's all my presentation. And thank you very much. I look forward to our future collaborations. Thank you.
That was Dr. Yu Tao. Thank you very much for your comprehensive lecture. And now may I remind everyone, if you want to have questions, you just post it here via Zoom. And please place your name and affiliation. And also, I would like to invite our friends participating via Facebook. You can also send your questions via chat box. Okay, so I think we have a first question here from Mr. Emil Capsula. How about the transparency between the company and beneficiaries?
Yeah, thank you for this question. This is a very important question regarding our case study. Yeah, actually, I didn't think much about the transparency issues related to the between company and the beneficiaries. But according to my previous work related to this case study, actually for the corporation, the No-Food Spring Corporation, actually they are a very environmentally responsible corporation. They have published several sustainable development goals report each year. And so they are committed to environmental protection and conservation in the source water region, because the water sources are very important for their bottled water production. And we also think that although we proposed that the corporation and the consumers were the major payers of this proposed PES scheme, but we still think that there may be very significant challenges to involve the corporation and the consumers into this PES scheme, because it is very challenging to convince them to pay, because the corporation is a very powerful organization, and although we did these calculations, but they may question our calculations results, or they may say they have already paid taxes, or they have already paid make other social responsibilities made. So it is still a very important social issues to really engage the large corporations like this corporation into the PS scheme. I don't know if I answered the questions, but maybe you can further clarify the transparency issues that you just mentioned. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so any more questions from our audience? Please just write here on our Zoom chat box. By the way, Dr. Yu, may I know in China, who implements the ecosystem services scheme? Is it the central government or the local governments, the provincial or the municipal governments or city governments? Who implements this payment scheme for the ecosystem services?
Yes, thank you for the question. Actually, the agro-environment schemes here were mainly implemented in Europe regions, but in China, we also have different categories of payment for ecosystem service schemes. For example, the sloping land conversion program. This is very popular, very widely implemented payment for ecosystem service scheme program in China, meaning that we aim to convert sloping cropland to forest land to preserve the nature or to preserve ecosystem services in the region. And normally I think it's the central government and also the provincial government who will work together to implement such programs, because the funds will come from both the central government and the provincial government. Yeah.
So based on your opinion, who implements it better? And is it the central government or the provincial? And which you think implementer gives more benefit to our or to your farmers or stakeholders in the community?
To my understanding, I think central government plays a very vital role in China in implementing such payment for ecosystem service schemes because they may provide the most of the funding to the local region. I mean, normally the provincial government will only supplement some sort of funding to implement such programs, but I guess funding comes most from the central government. And as to the benefits to the local stakeholders, like to the farmers or to the residents in the local regions, I think in China, the implementation of the payment for ecosystem service program were mostly conducted by the government. I mean, the local government received this money and they spend the money to implement some nature conserving programs or nature restoration programs. There may be some compensation to the local farmers. For example, if they need the farmers to move to another place, or if they need the farmers to change the land use, they may provide some source of compensation to the farmers. But most of the money was spent on some governmental implementations of the program, such as they just conduct some large-scale ecosystem restoration project. And the funding from this project was sourced from the payment for ecosystem service programs.
Okay, I have a direct message here asking, how do you implement the transboundary ecosystem services with your southern border with countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah. How do you implement the transboundary ecosystem services scheme with your southern border? Because, the countries south of China, like Thailand here and Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, you share borders with them. So how do you implement it? Via the central government or the provincial government?
Yeah, I think it's a very important issue for the southern China borders and with the South Asian neighboring countries. Um, I don't know much about that, but to my understanding, it is the central government who will handle these issues. And I mean, our governments may have some uh, may communicate with the neighboring countries to discuss about the transboundary issues, especially in the Lancang Mekong River Basin. For example, the Mekong River Basin, we share the watershed with Vietnam, with Thailand. I think the governments among our countries will have some discussions about that issue. Yeah, I think it's a very important issue because especially due to the construction of the dams related to the regulation of water quality of water quantity. Yeah, I think central government will handle these issues.
We have another question from one of our professors here at CESAM UPLB, Professor Ed Roquino. He asked, in many cases, intangible ecosystem services such as cultural, spiritual, and aesthetic values are closely coupled with the production of provisioning services, say water. However, these intangible services often function as externalities and exhibit characteristics of public goods, making them more challenging to quantify, attribute, and incorporate into market-based mechanisms like PES, not to mention the free rider problem. How can we design and implement PES schemes that effectively capture and compensate for these less tangible but equally important benefits?
Yeah. Thank you for this question. I think it's really a very challenging issue to quantify, especially to monitorize the value of cultural ecosystem services because they are quite intangible and not very easy to evaluate their economic value. So this could be a very challenging issue to incorporate these cultural ecosystem services in payment for ecosystem service schemes. But I don't have many thoughts about that. But I think maybe we could if the region has if the regional focus is a scenic area, maybe we could estimate the economic value of cultural ecosystem services by investigating the the sales revenue of the scenic area as a very important tool to estimate the amount or the economic value of cultural ecosystem services provided by this region. And they may incorporate tourists or those who buy tickets to visit the scenic area as potential beneficiaries and payers to be involved, to be engaged in this PES scheme. For example, can increase the price for the tickets or some other sorts of means to incorporate different tourists as beneficiaries and payers in such a PES scheme. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have another here from Emil Capsula. I think this is a comment. I like the distance-based and the flow policy because in the Philippines, that is just floating policies issues. Okay. So any more questions from our audience here via Zoom or Facebook? You can still shoot it here. We have another one from Marciano Cadalin. In the presentation of results for the payers in the 3 regions, how was the proposed municipal water price increase calculated?
Yes, thank you. Yes, in calculating the amount of payment shared by each party of the water users, here are the results. We calculated that for example, for the local watershed, they should pay $0.6 million, and in order to pay this $0.6 million, we further calculated that it should be increased by 1.8%, and I think this was calculated based on the statistical data. For example, we actually collected data on the amount of water withdrawn by the local watershed and also by the Hangzhou metropolis, and then we also have a water price data for municipal water use. For example, we also have water price for for municipal water use, and then we calculated the amount of economic benefits gained from water withdrawal in the watershed and in the metropolis. That is a certain amount of money, like shown here, the $440 million and $35 million, and then because all the 3 parties of water users need to pay in total $44.5 million of compensation. So to split the bill, the bill was split based on their economic benefits gain. For example, 35, 44, 440, and also nearly 2,000. So for the watershed, they should spare like 0.6, and for this one 7.9, and then 6, then 36. So for example, the original water price in total was 440 for the metropolis, but now they should pay an additional 7.9 million. So this could be 440 plus 7.9, that is 447.9 million. And this increase, like 7.9 divided by 440 equals 1.8%. So in order to pay an additional $7.9 million for the metropolis, it should increase the water price by 1.8% if they still consume the same amount of water. So this is how we calculate the increase in water price, and also similar for the increase of a sale price. Yeah, that is 36 divided by 1,998. That is also 1.8% increase in price.
Okay, for a follow-up from Mr. Marciano Cadalin, can this be validated, for example, through WTP, and see if this coincides with the socioeconomic factors of the payees?
Yeah, that is a very important question. Although I didn't show the information here, but actually in the articles, in the discussion of our articles, we also collected some data from other related research, other related studies using willingness to pay or willingness to accept methods to investigate both payers and also payees of a PS scheme. their willingness to accept or willingness to pay in such a PES scheme. And by comparing our results, for example, increased by 1.8% with other results in other studies, we found that our results performs quite good because, for example, in some other regions, according to questionnaire surveys, payers payers or ecosystem service users, they are willing to increase the water price by 2% or even by 10% in some regions of the world. And we also compared our results from the provider side. For example, here we estimated that for each farmer, they could receive over 4,000 to 10,000 US dollars of payment per hectare. And we also compare these numbers with other studies. In many other studies, they estimated that the farmers or other stakeholders of ecosystem service providers may receive an amount of payment lower than this. So I think our results are quite competitive comparing to other studies. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any more questions from our participants here? I think that's the last one, Dr. Yu. So before we close the event, let me read a certificate for you. Can you please stop share your screen?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let me wait for the certificate to be shared by Miss Jessa. Okay, go ahead. So the certificate of appreciation is given to Dr. Yu Tao for serving as a resource person during the Sesame Exchanges seminar series entitled "A Transboundary and Spatially Targeted Payment for Ecosystem Services Scheme," organized by the Continuing Education and Training Division of SESAM, held in August 6, not August 16, it's February 27 here via Zoom, given this day, February 2025, 27th day of 2025. Sorry for that. We'll just edit this. Signed by Dr. Rico C. Angkog, Dean SESAM. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And now for our closing message. Yeah. We will have another professor from the School of Environmental Science and Management, Dr. Antonio Contreras. Good morning, Sir Tonton.
Good morning. Thank you for Professor Yutao for giving us the opportunity to learn a lot from your experience in this very important and very timely research undertaking. You really have impressed on us the nature of transboundary payments for ecosystem services, how these financial transfers between countries or jurisdictions to support conservation or sustainable management of ecosystems to provide benefits across borders can be very relevant yet also very challenging. You illustrated to us an example of transboundary PAS within China, 3 different locations. And that itself is already challenging. What could even be more challenging, something that is also very relevant to one of the current PhD programs we have in SESAM, which is environmental diplomacy negotiations, where we talk about transboundary and we mean countries. One question was asked earlier about China and in relation to Laos and Myanmar and Vietnam. And these are things that are very much related. In fact, your study has contributed further into an understanding of watershed dynamics. In fact, one of our programs right now, research program in SESAM, which is PAMANA, under the leadership of Dr. Decibel Eslava, we're considering the PAS system and theory in relation to sustainable management in establishing what we call as guardian watersheds. So that thank you for providing us an additional material from where to draw the model for that particular intervention. Your research has contributed to the growing literature about PAS, and this is going to add on to those that are happening in Guatemala and Mexico, for example, on payment for watershed services program. We have the Norway Amazon Fund, where in Brazil and other Amazon basin countries are engaging with Norway on PES that are transboundary on carbon sequestration, biodiversity conservation. In Rwanda, in Burundi, and in the Democratic Republic of Congo, we see that in the Rusizi River Initiative. And in Costa Rica and Nicaragua, we have watershed conservation interest that drives their PES. South Africa and Lesotho is very much into this as well in the Maluti-Drakensberg Transfrontier Conservation and Development Project. Even the European Union in its Natura 2000 network with multiple EU member states are involved in transboundary PES discussions. So, as you correctly pointed out, transboundary PES programs are diverse. They cover services such as water regulation, which you illustrated very well, but it could also be applied in carbon sequestration and biodiversity conservation. Successful initiatives would require strong governance, long-term financial commitments, and multi-stakeholder cooperation, which you also emphasize. But there are a lot of challenges. Legal institutional challenges are there. Equity and fairness issues are also being raised. Economic and financial issues such as valuation and long-term funding stability could be, as well as transaction costs can be daunting. Another challenge is how you monitor compliance and enforcement. And if it is transboundary, you have to also deal with political and diplomatic considerations such as sovereignty concerns, geopolitical tensions, and even competing national interests, which is, I think you pointed out earlier, that might happen in the Mekong River, for example, when the issue becomes transboundary and we're talking about states. So there are a lot of ecological challenges and political challenges when we look towards potential solutions. Your output will contribute to the provision of a technical foundation for developing strategies that can hopefully lead to the development of multilateral or multilateral agreements that would enhance and foster inclusive stakeholder participation, can lead to a harmonization of monitoring and evaluation systems that we need, and diversify long-term funding sources, and of course, be used as a technical data and scientific basis for conflict resolution. So thank you very much, Dr. Yutao, for sharing with us your findings, and we hope that our audience, so the students and faculty and researchers, as well as those who work in civil society, who allowed themselves to be graced by your erudition of your research results, will benefit a lot from this. Thank you very much. And once again, on behalf of SESAM, I would like to now close this very important event and this very important knowledge sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sir Tonton, for your closing message and synthesis of our event today. Again, I would like to thank everybody who attended today, especially Dr. Yu Tao, for giving his time and ideas and sharing with us his study. So would like to request everybody to scan this QR code for your evaluations, so you will have your e-certificate later. And on behalf of the SESAM CETD, or the Continuing Education and Training Division, with our head, Forester Sofia Alaira, team members Jessa Aquino Cando, Patrick Kabambang, Cherry Padilla, and yours truly, I'm Tad Lawas. Again, thanking you and inviting you for our future SESAM exchanges. Just wait for our announcement via Facebook and our website. Okay, so this is Tad Lawas again for the Seminar Series 18 of SESAM Exchanges. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Dr. Yu, thank you, Dr. Yu.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Dean. Thank you.